Okay, so One Piece. What can I say about One Piece that has not been said many times before? I mean, there really is nothing to say. It's a brilliant work of art, a masterclass in storytelling, and a timeless classic. This story will go down in history as one of the greatest ever made. And while it might look simple on the surface, it's like a blade of grass. The more you look at it, the more you see. At first, you see bright colors and a simple plot. But move closer and you see more detail. You see themes of destiny, fate, dreams, unstoppable ideals that lie deep in the heart of man. Look harder and you'll find friendship, loyalty, and perseverance. Look any closer and you'll find pain, sacrifice, and suffering. And all this is just Luffy. Luckily, you will also see themes of overcoming insurmountable odds, and this has led him to become stronger both mentally and physically, which is a good thing because Luffy is a big fan of punching things, and strength certainly helps with that. So get ready to hoist your anchor and set sail, because we are going to take a stab at calculating the physical power of One Piece's protagonist, the rubber boy himself, Monkey D. Luffy.
I'm going to the Grand Line. That's why I'm here. To go to the Grand Line, get my hands on the One Piece, and then be king of the pirates.
Hello Internet, Jojo here, and welcome to IdeaShock, where, for the record, this video is going to be filled with a lot of complicated calculations and incredibly high numbers. So, for those of you who think that you have a good grasp of how strong you think Monkey D. Luffy is, just forget what you think you know, because it's completely wrong. The numbers that we're going to talk about are so absurdly high that it will change how you view the entire One Piece franchise as a whole. At least it changed how I looked at One Piece. Now, normally with these videos, I like to go into a bit of the character's history, in case some of you after watching don't know much of the character. Though, if you're not aware of Luffy in One Piece, then, well, thank you so much for checking out this video. It's awesome, and you really need to check out One Piece. However, the thing is, considering the obscene amount of information that we need to cover in this video and the length, we're not going to do any character history sections, because, believe me, we need all the time we can get, because just talking about Luffy's power output is going to take up more time than almost all of my other How Strong Are videos. That being said, while I will be calculating Luffy's power in this video, I do plan on covering his speed and other abilities down the road. Probably a few months from now. Maybe next year. I don't know. So let's stop wasting time and get this One Piece ball rolling as we calculate the offensive power of Monkey D. Luffy.
You're all going to die! You morons can't challenge the entire world and expect to win!
Yeah? Bring it on!
Now, like the vast majority of shonen anime, One Piece has an astounding number of times that the main character shows an extraordinary amount of power. The feats that we're going to discuss in this video come from all corners of the One Piece franchise, from the movies to the canon storyline. But this first feat comes from one of the movies, Strong World. For those of you who have been around for a while, you know how I typically formulate the video, and will immediately recognize that this means that this first feat is the least powerful. In One Piece Strong World, Luffy ends up going toe-to-toe with the legendary pirate, Shiki the Golden Lion. The final battle of Strong World takes place atop Shiki's floating mountain ship thing. It makes sense in context. Now, when Luffy beats Shiki, he does it by using a Gear 3rd Thor battle axe. This one attack ended up turning the massive island into dust. The energy from a feat like this is actually pretty easy to find once you get all the dimensions and volume of what was destroyed. In this instance, for us to find the size of the island, we're going to find the length of Luffy's foot. Comparing Zoro to these trees, and then the tree's thickness to Luffy's leg, and we find that the immediate affected area has a diameter of about 427,500 meters. From here, we can zoom out and compare the diameter to the outlined area of the island. And with that, we find the floating island Marvel has a diameter of about 4 million meters. Applying this diameter to the numbers from this other panel and treating it like a cone, we find that the bottom half of the island has a volume of 9.78 quintillion cubic centimeters. Now, we can see the top half of the island is mostly flat, but there is clearly a large mountain on top of it, so in order to take care of that, we will treat the top area like a cone and then divide that volume in half. With that, the final volume that Luffy destroyed comes to be about 12.925 quintillion cubic centimeters of rock. With this volume, we can now apply the appropriate numbers for pulverization. To justify pulverization, I would like to point out the surprising lack of massive falling rocks and the gigantic dust cloud that Luffy makes. It literally eclipses the entire floating island group. As to what the island is most likely made of, a stone like granite makes sense, as it has a mount on it, and that's what most mountains are made of. Multiplying this volume with the pulverization value for granite, 250 joules per cubic centimeter, and we find that Luffy's Thor axe must have struck with a massive 772.287 gigatons of TNT. For reference, this is the equivalent of Mount Everest hitting the Earth at about twice the speed of sound, and this is only the first feat that we looked at. Luffy's feats only get more and more powerful from here on out. You know, like the time in canon when he punched so hard that it blew away every cloud past the horizon. Friggin' clouds. This happened when Luffy was attempting to challenge the lightning Logia user Inaru, or Inul from the manga. It's weird, I don't get it, but I'm gonna refer to him as Inaru because that's how I know him. Luffy ran up this giant vine and found himself face to face with a massive Thunder Advent. The Thunder Advent is a giant electricity-charged cloud that Inaru used to vaporize several sky islands. However, Luffy then used his Gum Gum fireworks to break the Thunder Advent and send the clouds flying away. In order to move clouds, a person must generate a massive amount of energy, and because of how the scene went, we know that it all had to come from Luffy. I'll go into why it couldn't have come from the Thunder Advent a bit later, so hold your horses. In order to find how much power Luffy had to generate, we first need to know how much the clouds that he moved weighed. By using the size of the going area in this panel, then comparing it to the trees here, and then comparing the trees to the full island, and we find this island is about 17,700 feet wide, which translates to about 5,400 meters. Now, comparing the island to the Thunder Advent, and we find the Advent must be a massive 14,448 meters in diameter, and would have a volume of about 1.58 trillion cubic meters. Considering the average weight of water droplets in a cubic meter of cloud is about 1.003 kilograms per cubic meter, and we can find the total weight of the Thunder Advent to be about 1.5848 trillion kilograms of water. However, that is just the Thunder Advent. This attack blasted every cloud all the way to the horizon. There are two things that we need to keep in mind that affect the distance to the horizon. One, the fact that Skypiea is over 10,000 feet in the air, and two, the One Piece planet is really, really big. So, let's first talk about the size of the planet. As much as you might assume that this is going to be complicated, it's not going to be as complicated as you might assume it's going to be. You see, while we are never given a canon globe of the One Piece planet that has all the locations on it, we are given all we need to find the planet's size. The first piece of information that we are given comes from the Alabasta arc when Vivi and the crew are trying to cross this river. Vivi says that this river is about 50 kilometers wide, and now we just need something to compare it to. We don't get any full images of the island until the very end of the arc when the drought breaks and rain begins to fall. These panels follow the first raindrop as it falls to Alabasta below, and in these panels we get this. I'm measuring the river's width to the size of the island, and we find this island is about 5,075 kilometers in width. The next piece of information comes from much later when Haki is explaining the various ways to go through the Grand Line. By counting all the islands that the crew went to, excluding the ones that were in the sky or ones that weren't supposed to be there, and we find the Straw Hats must have taken this path to the Red Line. Because Alabasta was the fourth island visited, it must be this one. So, comparing it to the size of the Red Line, and this part of the Red Line must be about 17,255 kilometers wide. Finally, by comparing the Red Line to the rest of the planet in this image, we find that it has a diameter of about 828,240 kilometers. For reference, this is about 65 times larger than our own planet, Earth, 7 times larger than Jupiter, and about half the size of the Sun. It's big! Moving on to height. As I mentioned a bit ago, Skypiea is 10,000 feet in the air, but we also have to account for Giant Jack. By doing more comparisons, we can find that both this vine and the height of the Sky Island give us a total altitude of around 12,700 meters. With this as our viewing height and with the size of the planet, we find the distance to the horizon and the radius of the storm clouds is over 3,243 kilometers away. This is almost 1,000 times farther than the horizon would be at ground level. Now, using various panels, we find this cloud layer is about 894.77 meters thick, and with that, along with the distance to the horizon, this cloud layer must have a volume of 29.6 million cubic kilometers. Adding the volume of the Thunder Advent and the weight of the water, and we find that this punch displaced about 296.888 quadrillion kilograms of cloud. This is equivalent to about 5.6 million Great Walls of China. This is absolute insanity. With the weight known, we now need to find the time it would take for all the clouds to move out of sight. What we mean by out of sight is that the clouds would have had to move past the horizon in order for them to escape our view. By counting the words in these panels, only 2.625 seconds have elapsed until the clouds disappear. For the clouds to move 3,243 kilometers in 2.625 seconds, these clouds were certainly moving over 2,763,670 million miles per hour, or over Mach 3,600. The kinetic energy of these clouds while moving at this speed is over 5.4 exatons of TNT. However, that's just the energy it would have if it impacted with another object. The energy to get an object moving from 0 to its max speed is far greater. By using the time that it would take for the clouds to cover the entire distance, we can find that these clouds, at a minimum, have an acceleration of about 470,000 meters per second squared. For these clouds that weigh so much to accelerate at that speed, they would have a force of about 13 sextillion newtons, and by applying the total distance moved, we find that for Luffy to get these clouds moving from a complete standstill, he must have generated 10.8314 exatons of TNT, essentially doubling the previous kinetic energy value. Now, you might be asking yourself, what about the energy from the Thunder Advent? Could it be a major part, if not all, the energy that moved the clouds? And no, not really. The entire point of Luffy doing this to the cloud is that the lightning is attracted to the golden ball and then transferred to his rubber body. There is no path for lightning to take that would allow it to be part of this explosion. And even if the explosion was part of the cloud's movement, the energy the Thunder Advent released to vaporize the entire island is insignificant in the grand scheme of things. This feat would be Luffy's maximum power output, but then the author just had to go and introduce Haki. This next bit is not one feat itself, but a combination of a lot of different things from post-timeskip. To start this off, we need to go to the longest story arc in One Piece, the Dressrosa arc. When Luffy went up against the Warlord of the Sea, Don Quixote Doflamingo, Doflamingo uses the power of his Devil Fruit to launch an attack called the 16 Holy Bullets at him. In response to this, Luffy, using Gear 4's Bound Man, launched a super powerful punch that clashed with these bullets. This punch did not only stop the bullets, it completely shattered them, along with Doflamingo's armament Haki. H-A-K-I, not H-O-C-K-E-Y. Two different things. In the end, this punch hit Doflamingo and sent him rocketing into the ground, and as he hit it, the ground flew upwards. Now, I bet that the majority of you are expecting me to calculate the force required to launch these rocks into the air, but that's not what I'm going to do. The reason for this is really because it's not actually as impressive as any of the feats that I've previously discussed. I mean, the highest estimates I found, if I recall correctly, were about 1/700th of the first feat that I calculated here. So there's some comparison for you. However, when you look into the strength of Doflamingo's strings and the power to break them, that's where we get into some high numbers. In a previous video, we already talked about the strength of Doflamingo's strings. If you want to know exactly how I found it, then you can check out that video. But in that video, we found that his strings could take about 11.4 gigatons of TNT per square centimeter, and that his Haki could take about 245 megatons of TNT per square centimeter. In order to find how much energy this feat required, we need to find the total volume of the string that Luffy broke. There are two things that need to be accounted for: the volume of the 16 Holy Bullets, and the volume of the spiderweb thing. Looking at this panel and using the straw hat as a ruler, it's about 36.2 centimeters wide, we find that the bullets are 793.2 centimeters long and are about 18.1 centimeters wide. Treating them like a cone, and these spikes end up having a volume of 68,031.25 cubic centimeters each, or a volume of 1,088,500 cubic centimeters for all 16 of these. Using the same numbers to find surface area, and we find that Doflamingo's Haki, H-A-K-I, not H-O-C-K-E-Y, this isn't Canada, is covering a total of 365,000 square centimeters. Moving on to the spiderweb, we can compare Luffy to the diameter of the broken web to find that it's about 1,126.22 centimeters wide. This is roughly this big. So with that diameter, we find that all these rings added together are 19,113.45 centimeters long. With this length, we can now turn to find thickness. Compare the string to Doflamingo in this panel, and the thickness comes to be about 62727 centimeters. This gives the spiderweb a cross-sectional area of 13.9 square centimeters. Multiplying these numbers together, and we find the total destroyed volume of the spiderweb is about 590,000 cubic centimeters. So, the final result of all this math brings the volume to around 1,680,000 cubic centimeters and a surface area of about 365,000 square centimeters. By multiplying these numbers by the destruction values that we found in the previous video, and Luffy ends up having to have struck with over 19.245 petatons of TNT. Now, for the record, this is lowballing it quite substantially, as in the previous video, we calculated the energy required to break the strings by comparing it to someone who could not break the strings. This is just what happens when you have someone who can cut a mountain in half, not be able to cut a string, and then have a different character just completely wreck a massive amount of these strings. This is just what happens. Now, since Haki was introduced into the story, these characters have to become exponentially stronger in order to stay relevant. An easy example of this is Luffy. When he punched these holy bullets straight on, he was putting those 19.245 petatons of TNT basically against the tip of a sword. Luffy punched the tip of a sword and won. Imagine if that happened in real life. Actually, don't do that if you're squeamish. It's not a pretty image. By assuming that the tip of these spikes are sharp as they can be, then Luffy was putting all his energy on only 2.1316 square centimeters. This means that Luffy's Haki has to be able to withstand about 377 septillion joules per square centimeter. This is a lot and means that to break through his Haki, H-A-K-I, not H-O-C-K-E-Y, I don't know why I feel like I have to keep explaining this, but to break through his Haki, he would have to be hit with an attack greater than 9 petatons of TNT per square centimeter. For reference, the surface area of someone's fist is generally around 30 to 40 square centimeters. So, multiply this 9 petatons by that, and that is the power that someone would need to break through his Haki with a punch. The next fight we're going to look at is when Luffy fought Charlotte Cracker. We are shown several times that both of their Hakis are just about on par with each other, and only after a bit of time passes is Luffy finally able to shatter Cracker's Haki-covered blade. Taking the surface area of Cracker's blade, which is about 5,461.18 square centimeters, and then applying the value of Luffy's Haki to it, because Luffy and Cracker scale to each other, we find that for Luffy to have broke this sword and Haki, he had to have struck with about 49.3 exatons of TNT. You know, something that I've noticed when I give a huge number out is that there seems to be a disconnect between how people perceive it and how strong it actually is. And very similar to when someone says infinity. People know it's massive, but because they have no reference points, they can't get their brain around it. So, to give you a reference, this is about 5 times greater than the energy value we gave Luffy's cloud bursting feat, and it's also enough to carve 235 million Grand Canyons. Because the tip of Cracker's blade is about 0.04864 square centimeters, we just need to divide the energy from the punch by the area to find that the strength of Luffy's Haki at this time is 1,013.69 exatons of TNT. Whew, we are almost done. Jumping forward to when Luffy fought Katakuri, we know that when the two clashed for the first time, the resulting power was too much for Luffy's Haki to take, but not too much for Katakuri's. Because the surface area of Luffy's fist is about 31.61 square centimeters, the total energy they must have produced was a massive 32 zetatons of TNT. Now, luckily, we only have to apply half of this energy to each of them, meaning that base Luffy, because this is basically Luffy that's doing the punching, must be able to strike with 16 Zeta tons of TNT. Then, later, after several hours of fighting and the reveal of Snake Man, we know that both Gear 4th forms are capable of damaging Katakuri's Haki, which, as we stated before, has a minimum durability of 32 Zeta tons of TNT. This power, for the record, is not planet-destroying, but it is getting scarily close. Though, it kinda makes sense when you start to think about it. After all, it takes Luffy a long time to decide to go into his stronger forms, and a simple explanation for that is that he knows his Haki is too weak to withstand the power of Bound Man or Snake Man, so he has to wait until his Haki can take it. After all, we know that Haki is dependent on the willpower of the user, and if anything, Luffy seems to get stronger-willed in the middle of a fight. Not to mention that it's basically canon that Luffy can become 100 times stronger in one fight because of the movie 3D2Y when Luffy fights Burn D World. In their first fight, World was wrecking Luffy in his base speed, but in their second encounter, Luffy was keeping up and eventually beat him when World was at 100-fold speed. In that case, I guess you could say that Luffy is able to destroy a world.
I actually brought this for something totally different, but it worked out, right?
This entire movie was far shorter than his fight with both Cracker and Katakuri, and on top of all this, we know that all types of Haki canonically get stronger the more they're used in combat. But the question that most of you are thinking, if Luffy is this strong, then why has he not done more impressive single feats? The answer to that is actually pretty simple. The first explanation is that when he fought Katakuri, he was in a separate dimension, and he actually did destroy it quite a bit. Second is that the One Piece world is far larger than our own, as we discussed earlier, and to destroy it would require around 14,677 Yoda tons of TNT. This is over 458,666 times more energy than what we calculated Luffy's greatest attack to be. So this means that there's no way that Luffy could overpower the gravitational binding energy of the One Piece planet. We also know that there are characters that are stated to be able to destroy the world, with the most obvious of them being Whitebeard. Throughout the series, it's been stated multiple times that his Devil Fruit has the power to destroy the world. Now, obviously he did not destroy the planet, but given that a lot of the strongest characters have said this about him, it makes sense. But even then, Whitebeard is not the only character that should possess this kind of power. There are a lot of characters who are as strong, if not stronger than Whitebeard. Characters like Goldie Roger, Kaido, Shanks. I mean, Goldie Roger fought on par with Whitebeard for several days. Kaido, well, he did this to Luffy, and Shanks stopped the war between the World Government, the Blackbeard Pirates, the Revolutionaries, and the Whitebeard Pirates, single-handedly. You get it? Because he only has one arm? Anyways, this is not even talking about Blackbeard, who has the power of a black hole. You know, things that eat solar systems. Now, I highly doubt he's that powerful, but it still stands. But even then, all of these don't really matter, because, as I already said, Luffy can become 100 times stronger in only a single fight. And he's had a lot of fights. So, did I convince you of Luffy's power? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm not gonna lie, it took me a long time of calculating and recalculating to finally find a place where I was okay with this last calculation.
Inner peace. Itchy nose. Finally, inner peace.
Of course, I'm not above taking criticism, so if any of you have any questions, comments, or insults, leave them down below, and I will definitely take a look at them. In fact, I actually want to start doing Q&A videos, but that requires a lot of, Q, so I can give A. Anyways, there is actually something far more important to discuss. You see, this video is actually in celebration of 1 full year on YouTube. Of course, it's not exact, I actually published my first video on April 1st, so that's a thing. But, in short, I just want to say thank you so much for this brilliant time on YouTube. I literally could not do this without you. There are no words to express how thankful and grateful I am for every single one of you. If I could get 1 million subscribers right now, but lose all you guys, I wouldn't do it. Because
Whatever you do in this life, it's not legendary unless your friends are there to see it.
So, with that said, let me just say it one more time. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Remember to stay spectacular. JoJo, out.
Let me show you another move. The dramatic exit. What's that?